Sundarbans. The very word evokes imagery of lush greenery, silent rivers and a majestic wilderness where tigers roam, and the air smells like life itself. It is not just the world's largest mangrove forest, it is the heartbeat of Bangladesh and the lungs of our nation spread over 10,000 square kilometers shared between Bangladesh and India, with nearly 60% of it lying in Bangladesh. This forest is not just a geographical entity, it is a living, breathing guardian of our people, our biodiversity and our climate. Every breath we take in this region is filtered by the Sundarbans. Every storm we survive is softened by its roots, and every future we dare to dream is protected by its very existence. This is not an exaggeration, this is the truth. The Sundarbans is our shield, our resource, our heritage, and our responsibility. Known for its stunning biodiversity, the Sundarbans is home to over 500 species of wildlife, including the iconic Royal Bengal Tiger, spotted deer, crocodiles, otters, snakes, and more than 300 species of birds. The intertwining rivers, creeks, mudflats, and tidal waterways create a web of life that supports millions of people directly and indirectly. But beyond its beauty and biological value lies its greatest service to our nation. It absorbs carbon dioxide at massive levels, acting as a powerful carbon sink, reducing the impact of global warming on our land and our lungs. The mangrove trees play a vital role in capturing greenhouse gases, providing an essential service in our battle against climate change. But perhaps even more critically, the Sundarbans protects Bangladesh from natural disasters. This deltaic forest acts as a natural barrier against cyclones, tidal surges and tsunamis. When storms like Sidar Aila and Amphan struck the southern coast, it was the Sundarbans that stood between devastation and survival. Its dense mangrove roots held the soil together, reduced the wind force, and absorbed the fury of the waves, saving countless lives and properties. In the process, the people of Khulna, Satkhira, and Bagarhat owe much of their resilience to this silent guardian. It has taken the hit for us again and again, yet how often do we pause to thank it? How often do we see it as the protector it is while we debate development and industrialization? The Sundarbans continues to give without asking for anything in return, but that does not mean it is invincible. Deforestation, illegal logging, poaching, pollution from nearby industrial activities and unregulated tourism are threatening its very core. And now climate change is hitting it harder than ever. Rising sea levels are increasing salinity in the water and soil, affecting the health of the trees, and wildlife species are migrating or dying, and entire ecosystems are under threat. And yet, the Sundarbans remains resilient. Like the people of Bangladesh, it bends but does not break, it retreats but does not surrender. But for how long we must understand that protecting the Sundarbans is not just an environmental issue, it is a national survival strategy. Without it, the southern parts of Bangladesh would be far more vulnerable to sea level rise storms and flooding. Without it, we lose one of the last strongholds of biodiversity in South Asia. Without it, we lose an irreplaceable natural pharmacy. The Sundarbans holds plants and organisms that have medicinal properties, some known, some yet to be discovered. It supports the honey collectors, fishermen, crab catchers, and herbal practitioners who depend on its resources, not as a business, but as a way of life for generations. The people who live near the Sundarbans have coexisted with nature with reverence and resilience. Their livelihoods are deeply intertwined with the health of this forest. And as the forest suffers, so do they, and make no mistake, the impact doesn't stop at the borders of the Sundarbans. When this forest declines, we all suffer. Increased air pollution, higher temperatures, extreme weather, and the loss of a major ecological buffer. The lungs of our nation do not just clean the air for Khulna or Satkhira, they clean the air for Dhaka, for Chittagong, and for every Bangladeshi. The Sundarbans is our shared responsibility. We must treat it as such. If a city loses its trees, we call it a concrete jungle. When a nation loses a forest like Sundarbans, what should we call it? A dying nation? We cannot afford to treat this treasure as an afterthought. It must be front and center in every development policy, every environmental law, every classroom and every conversation. But awareness is not enough. We need action policies that prevent deforestation must be enforced. Industrial projects near the forest must be strictly regulated. ecotourism must be developed with sustainability at its core. Not just profits, we must invest in mangrove restoration, scientific research, conservation training for local communities and alternative livelihoods that do not harm the forest. We must create a future where humans and Sundarbans do not compete but cooperate. Imagine teaching our children not just to memorize the Sundarbans in a textbook, but to understand its breath, its pulse, its generosity. Imagine national celebrations where we honor this forest as a living monument. Imagine international forums where Bangladesh leads the way in mangrove conservation, inspiring other coastal nations to do the same. Because we have the story, we have the struggle, and we still have the Sundarbans, but for how long depends on what we do today. As climate change accelerates, we must not make the mistake of thinking the Sundarbans will always be there. It is already showing signs of stress. The fresh water that once flowed into its heart is decreasing because of upstream damming and diversion. The biodiversity is shifting and tigers are now under greater threat from shrinking habitat and human conflict. What was once a vast wild sanctuary is slowly being squeezed into smaller fragments. And yet there is still hope. Bangladesh has shown the world how resilience and innovation can go hand in hand. We have grown our economy, reduced poverty, improved infrastructure, and survived some of the worst natural disasters known to mankind. And we have done so while keeping the Sundarbans alive. But now we must go one step further. We must integrate environmental sustainability into the very fabric of our development model. The Sundarbans must not be sacrificed for short-term gains. The price of losing it will be irreversible. The ecosystem services it provides, clean air, water, filtration, storm protection, carbon storage, and biodiversity, cannot be replicated by machines or money. The value of the Sundarbans is not just ecological, it is economic, cultural, spiritual, and political. When we protect it, we protect agriculture, tourism, fisheries, public health, and climate resilience. When we protect it, we fulfill our commitment to future generations. Our children should not inherit stories of how beautiful it once was. They should inherit the forest itself, vibrant, alive, and strong. It is time to reimagine our relationship with the Sundarbans, not as a resource to be extracted, but as a living partner to be respected and protected. We must include indigenous knowledge in our conservation plans. Listen to the forest people who have lived sustainably for centuries. We must strengthen our international collaborations, especially under the Paris Agreement and other environmental treaties. We must demand climate justice and funding to protect our natural assets, and the Sundarbans must be at the center of that conversation, because when the world sees the Sundarbans, they must not just see a UNESCO heritage site, they must see a symbol of global resilience, a frontline warrior in the battle against climate change, and a lesson in coexistence. We must tell its story again and again until the world listens and until we believe it ourselves. This forest is not just a background image in a tourism ad. It is a living, breathing entity. It is poetry and power, science and soul, all wrapped in green and gold. This is our national pride, our environmental insurance, and our most sacred responsibility. To destroy it would be to destroy a part of ourselves. To save it would be to rise as a nation with conscience and courage. Bangladesh must lead the world in protecting the Sundarbans, and the world must support that mission, because this is not just about trees and tigers, it is about lungs and lives, futures and faith. This is about ensuring that 50 years from now, a child in Bangladesh can walk under the same canopy of green and say, "This is my country, and I am proud of it." This is about justice, dignity, and vision. The kind of vision that sees forests not as obstacles, but as opportunities, the kind that honors what nature gives us, the kind that understands that the breath of the Sundarbans is the breath of Bangladesh. The future is still in our hands. Let's choose to protect it. Let's choose to protect the Sundarbans, the lungs of our nation and the soul of our soil.